In one of my other videos, I got told off for not wearing my glasses, so yeah, this one's for you. So I recently visited Puzzlewood, which is rumoured to have inspired some of Tolkien's work. Now, I did do some research before this video just to see if there was an official record of him mentioning Puzzlewood, but I think it's just one of those thought to have inspired him places. I mean, you can definitely see why it's thought to have inspired him. And he did visit the area, particularly a site only around 15 minutes or so away from Puzzlewood. So it's highly likely that he would have seen or visited Puzzlewood. The site I mentioned is actually really interesting, so I'm going to hit you with it now because unfortunately I didn't get to go because it was closed. Always happens to me. But it's called Lydney Park. It's actually an ancient Roman archaeological site which Tolkien worked on back in 1929. He helped do an archaeological dig there led by this well-known expert named Sir Mortimer Wheeler. Now, the dig took place at the site of this Roman temple called Dwarves Hill, and Tolkien, he gave advice and he worked with the team there, just bringing his knowledge of ancient languages and history to this project. And then not long after the Romans left, I think it was around 20 years or so, local people just seemed to kind of like forget that it had ever been a Roman site, and instead they then started telling these stories about the broken ruins and how they were once homes of dwarves and hobgoblins. So the place, it gained this like really spooky reputation, and the people were scared of it for centuries. Then nearly 1,000 years passed with the hill mostly left alone just because of these eerie legends. Tolkien actually wrote a chapter in Sir Mortimer Wheeler's book about the excavation, and when you read it you can see how the stories and the atmosphere of that place definitely helped shape the world of the Lord of the Rings. The book, it talks about timeless battles, ancient beings and legendary heroes with unusual names, things that definitely show up in Tolkien's writing. At the same time that he was working on The Hobbit, he was especially intrigued by all of these local superstitions about the ruins. And then one really, I think, strange and kind of like interesting connection is that the Roman god worshipped there was called Nodin, and one of his titles was Lord of the Mines. So too many coincidences. I'm going to take the glasses off because the reflection is going to be annoying me, let alone you. But hey, I hope you enjoyed my glasses for all of the 5-minute rant I just gave you about some little interesting Tolkien-y facts. Ew, what is going on with that? Right, let's go. So, as I walked through Puzzlewood, it definitely felt like I was in Middle-earth, in particular the Old Forest. So, it's time to talk about old Tom Bombadil. You know that merry fellow, bright blue his jacket and his boots are yellow? None has ever caught him. For Tom, he is the master. His songs are stronger songs, and his feet are faster. Yes, nailed it. Nailed it. Don't go anywhere else now for Tolkien stuff. Come to me. All right, as always, I pitch these videos for anybody new to Tolkien lore and Lord of the Rings, so it's easy to follow and accessible. Now, Tom Bombadil, strange, very cheerful guy. He's been pretty much around like forever. In the time of the Lord of the Rings, he lives in this quiet little valley called Withywindle, which is deep in the Old Forest, near a place called the Barrow Downs, which is a spooky area not far from a town named Buckland. His little corner of the world, it isn't huge, but somehow he has total control over it. Nothing really messes with him there at all. He lives in a cosy house with his wife Goldberry, and they keep to themselves far away from any towns or villages. Even though he's kind and friendly, he doesn't really get involved in any of the big battles between good and evil. He just does his own thing. So no one really knows where he came from or what he even is. He once said that he was around before the Dark Lord showed up in the world, which is, it's a pretty big deal because that means he might have been here before almost anything else at all, even before the super powerful beings, which are called the Valar, even before they arrived. Now, basically, it sounds like Tom could be the very first living thing to ever walk Tolkien's world, but Tolkien never fully explains it, so it's kind of left as mysterious, and that's part of what makes Tom so interesting. And later on in this video I will go into people's theories about who he is and what Tolkien might have been hinting at. So if you focus first though on the First and Second Ages, so these are the times before the Lord of the Rings. At some point Tom Bombadil, he left wherever it was he originally came from, and he ended up in Middle-earth. He wandered all over, exploring the land and seeing the world change. From the very first rainfalls to the growth of ancient forests, I tried to make that sound really smooth. Nobody really knows what he was doing during the First and Second Ages, but it's likely that he saw many of those big important events and battles take place. He also saw the forests of Middle-earth shrink over time, and maybe it felt, I suppose, kind of like his own powers were fading a little bit as the wild places started to disappear. It's not clear how much he interacted with the rest of the world, but over time he seems to have become kind of a legend, a character of old stories told by elves, dwarves, and of course men. Each group had a different name for him. The elves called him Iarwain, which means old young, since he always looked the same no matter how much time passed. They also called him Benadar, which means without a father. Men know him as Orald, and the dwarves call him Fawn. And all of these names, they add to the mystery of who he, or what he is. Eventually, Tom Bombadil, though, he stopped roaming and he settled down in a region called Eriador, in the western part of Middle-earth. He was actually there even before the elves made their way west, way back before the shape of the land and the sea had fully settled. It marked the beginning of his life near the Withywindle River, deep in what would become the Old Forest. As he wandered along the Withywindle, Tom eventually, he reached the Brandywine River, which is it's a much larger and a more well-known river in Middle-earth. It runs right past the Shire, and it kind of acts as like a natural border between the peaceful lands of the hobbits and then this wild, stranger regions of the east. It's an important river in the stories. It's also the site of the tragic bit of the Hobbit history where Frodo Baggins' father, Drogo Baggins, is said to have drowned there during a boating accident, along with his wife Primula. The tale goes that the boat, it simply sank, but some hobbits, they're whispering and gossiping, they whisper that Drogo, he was either too heavy for the boat, or Primula might have given him a little Gollum, Smeagol shove into the water, but nobody really knows the truth. Back in Tom's time, though, the valley, it was filled with strange and magical creatures. There was Goldberry, a lovely river spirit known as the River Woman's Daughter, Old Man Willow, a dark-hearted tree spirit who lured travellers into his roots, and even some odd creatures known as badger folk. These beings, they tried to capture Tom, but they were no match for him. With just the sound of his voice, he broke their spells and commanded them back into their natural states. Now, one day, Goldberry, being quite playful, she tugged Tom down under the water by his beard, and he told her, "Let me go." And she did. And that's when he realised he was kind of into it. Tom Bombadil, we don't know much about him, but what we do know is that he has a hair-pulling kink. Anyway, the very next day, Tom went back and he asked if Goldberry would marry him. She said yes, and their wedding was attended by all sorts of forest creatures, badger folk, birds, the animals of the woods, all gathering to celebrate this strange and timeless union. Which then brings us to the Third Age, which is where we see the Lord of the Rings take place. It's the one we're the most familiar with. It's not exactly clear when Tom settled into his little patch of land near the Old Forest, but we do know that he was already living there at the start of the Third Age. He saw a lot over the years, including the rise and the fall of the Dark Kingdom of Angmar, whose evil helped fill the nearby Barrow Downs, which are home to these creepy ghost-like beings called the Barrow-wights. We see them a lot in the Rings of Power. He also watched as the hobbits arrived in the area that would become the Shire. One part of the Shire called Buckland, it was especially close to Tom's territory. That's where he started interacting more with the hobbits, mostly the ones living nearby. Buckland also happened to be the childhood home of Frodo Baggins, obviously the guy who's going to carry the ring one day. It was that one, you know him. It was the Bucklanders who gave Tom the name Bombadil, and that's the name he ended up going by. Maybe his friendly and whimsical nature was partly shaped by spending time with the hobbits. They just love comfort, laughter, good company, all those things we all need and lack in life. There's an old tale about Tom's journey down the Withywindle River, where he met a variety of strange characters, both hobbits and magical forest folk. You've got Willow Wren, Fisher Blue, Whisker Lad and Old Swan. Each one tried to challenge him, but Tom, he charmed them with all the power of his voice. His journey ended at the home of Farmer Maggot. We all know him, that well-known hobbit who lived near the Brandywine River. Tom, he joined the family for some ale and dancing, and at the end of it all, a group of birds and otters, completely taken by his charm, they helped bring his boat back home. Now, at some point, Tom even wandered into the village of Bree, and he met Barleyman Butterbur, that kind but, forgetful innkeeper of the Prancing Pony, adding yet another moment of quiet connection to the world beyond his forest. Quite a common question is what was he up to during the War of the Ring? And hi! And particularly if you've only seen the movies, you wouldn't have even known he existed. But let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with Peter Jackson's choice to leave him out of the movies. In the year of 3018 of the Third Age, Frodo Baggins and his companions, they had a life-changing and nearly life-ending encounter in the Old Forest. We don't see it in the movies, so while trying to pass through, they ran into serious trouble with Old Man Willow, that same ancient and malicious tree spirit that Tom Bombadil had dealt with a long time ago. The tree captures Merry and Pippin and he traps them inside its roots. Now Frodo's desperate for help, so he ran off, shock, and by chance he found Tom Bombadil. He was just out gathering water lilies. Tom didn't hesitate. He hurried back with Frodo, and with this commanding song he ordered the tree to release the hobbits, and just like that, the tree obeyed. After the rescue, Tom then invited the hobbits to his home, and they were welcomed by Goldberry and treated to a couple of days of peace, feasting and singing, and it felt almost like a dream. Now this is important because it connects to Frodo. Now during this time, Frodo found himself opening up to Tom more than he expected. He accidentally, just casually reveals the full story of the One Ring and his mission to destroy it, and Tom asks to see the ring. Now I love this part, and it grates me that it wasn't included. Frodo just handed it over without any of the usual hesitation or fear that the ring tends to bring out in people. Tom, he examines it, he looks at the ring, he even just slips it on his finger. Nothing happens. He didn't vanish. The ring, it didn't affect him at all. He even made the ring disappear with this little sleight of hand trick, like the days of Dynamo the magician, before giving it back to Frodo. Frodo's super sus now, and he puts the ring on himself just to double check it's still working, make sure it was really his. But even then, Tom still sees him. He gently tells Frodo, take off the ring, and he tells him that his hand, it looks better without it. And then after the 2 peaceful days, the hobbits, they leave Tom's house and they continue their journey. But trouble's not far behind. They were captured by the spirits I mentioned earlier, the evil ones, the Barrow Wights, in the haunted Barrow Downs. Like I mentioned, you will recognise them from the Rings of Power, where they're the ghostly presence. It's chilling. They use their magic, and it adds to the dark atmosphere of that episode. I think they did it quite well. Luckily, though, Tom had taught Frodo a special song to call for help. Frodo sings it, and Tom swiftly arrives, driving away the Wights and opening the barrow to free them. Afterwards, though, he leads the hobbits to the edge of his lands, and that's where they say farewell. The problems weren't over, though. Not long after leaving Tom's protection, they were attacked again, and their ponies were frightened off. But in a touching moment, the ponies find their way back to Tom's home. They seem to sort of remember the kindness and the care they've received from him. Tom returns them to Barleyman Butterbur, the innkeeper of the Prancing Pony in Bree. Since Butterbur had already paid for their loss, he now found himself with the owner of 5 fine ponies. Over a month later, Tom then came up again during the Council of Elrond. Now, I love this part because it's where the leaders of the free peoples of Middle-earth, they gathered to decide what to do with the ring, right? They're all like, whoa, help us. Elrond remembered Tom from long ago, and someone even suggested giving the ring to him since he seemed immune to its power. Gandalf, he quickly shuts this idea down, and his explanation for doing so is that the ring, it doesn't work on Tom. He explained the ring didn't work on Tom, not because Tom controlled it, but because it didn't mean anything to him. Tom was outside of its influence. It couldn't tempt him, and he quite literally did not give 2 about it. He didn't care. Gandalf, he also pointed out that if everyone begged Tom to take the ring, he might agree, but he wouldn't understand why it mattered. He'd probably forget, toss it to the side without a second thought, and then just, forget it was even there. And if that happened, it wouldn't be long before Sauron found out where it was, then sent all of his power to take it. Even someone as powerful and untouched by evil as Tom wouldn't be able, or probably willing, to stop Sauron's armies forever. And that leads us to the Fourth Age, which was after the Lord of the Rings. So where did he go? What was he doing? After the One Ring was finally destroyed and the war was over, Gandalf took a bit of time to visit Tom Bombadil. What exactly they talked about, or even what the visit involved, was never recorded. When Frodo later asked him about it, Gandalf simply said that Tom was, as well as ever, quite untroubled and not much interested in anything that we have done or seen, except maybe the parts of the journey involving the Ents, which are like ancient tree herders of Middle-earth. As always, Tom, he remained outside of the world's worries, just happily doing his own thing. When Frodo later sailed across the sea into the west, this is why I mentioned the dream was important, leaving Middle-earth behind for good, he experienced something familiar. Now he has this peaceful moment that reminds him exactly of the dream he had while staying in Tom's house during their first visit. It was a dream of rest, light and calm, maybe even a glimpse of the peace that Tom just gets to live in every single day. Though Tom himself never left the borders of his land, and he didn't fight in any great battles, his story lived on. Samwise, Frodo's loyal friend, he wrote poems about Tom's adventures, capturing his strange wanderings and his whimsical life. Those tales, they were passed down through the Red Book of Westmarch, which is where the hobbits record their history, and it just helps keep Tom's legend alive in hobbit memory for generations to come. Something that is interesting, I think, to note within Tolkien's community is Tom Bombadil's true nature. It's one of the biggest mysteries of all of Tolkien's legendarium, and that's kind of exactly how Tolkien wanted it. Over the years, fans and even scholars have debated endlessly over who or what Tom really is. Even Tolkien himself never gave a clear answer. He once said that some things in a story should stay mysterious, especially if an explanation really exists. So in other words, Tom is just meant to remain a puzzle. One of the most widely accepted theories, though, we'll touch on it, is that Tom is one of the Ainur, which are like powerful angelic beings who helped shape the world before it began. Some believe he's a Maya, which is like a lesser version, kind of like Gandalf or Sauron, but one who would never get involved in the struggles of the world. A Maya who went native, as described by Robert Foster in a fantastic book called The Complete Guide to Middle-earth. Definitely recommend it if you've not read it. Other theories go even further. Some suggest that he might be the living spirit of Arda itself. Arda is the world and the earth and everything inside it. Or maybe even time itself, just walking around in a yellow hat. Some say that he could be the concentrated will of the old forests that once covered the land, or the personification of the music of the Ainur. It's hard to surmise, but it's kind of like a divine song that created the world. Go check out my videos on Melkor. Some see him as a symbol of Tolkien himself, or just perhaps a nod to the reader, someone outside of the story, immune to the rules of the world. I like that one. More far out ideas, I like that he's a mysterious, nameless just being, things that live deep beneath the earth, older than the world itself, or even a kind of opposite to Eru Ilúvatar, the god of Tolkien's world. But Tolkien made it clear, Tom, he's not Ilúvatar. When Goldberry simply said he is, in response to Frodo's question about Tom's nature, some readers saw him as they saw it as like a biblical connection to the I am that I am, but Tolkien has clarified that this was not the same thing. Tom is not God. There's no incarnation of God within Middle-earth. Tolkien has hinted that if anything, Tom might be nature itself, wild, ancient, and just beyond full understanding. Other theories that just don't sit are like Tom being one of the blue wizards, or secretly even the Witch King of Angmar, shout out to him. Just evil in disguise maybe, but they're just dismissed. There's no line up with that tone. The deep goodness that Tom represents, it just doesn't match. Sorry if you're one of those believers. In the end though, I'm going to try and make this as cool and dramatic as possible. Tom, he's a mystery. Mystery by design. He doesn't fit into the usual mould of heroes, villains, even immortal beings in Middle-earth. As Goldberry says, he just is. And maybe that's the point. In a world, here we go. In a world filled with wars, rings, power and prophecy, Tom reminds us that not everything needs to be explained or controlled. See, I can hit that when I have to. As always, I'm going to nag you any one time to do all the things you need to do to support my tiny channel. These videos don't kick off as much as my other ones, but I really enjoy doing them, and I really appreciate you being here. Go check out my posts. if you're watching this as I upload. If you're watching this 10 years from now, then don't do it. But my posts, there's quite a cool thing there you might be interested in if you subscribe to me. So go have a look. If it's you in the future and the time has passed, wasted your time really, didn't I? Anyway, all those things you need to do just one time, blah, 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 blah. Hi, to support my tiny channel. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video. That is always cringy. Bye.